Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Iskon Guru Vinda Ki, Shri Prabhupada Ki, Shri Shri Gaudana Mahaprabhu Ki, Shri Caitanya Charitamrta Ki. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, Adi Lila, chapter 7, entitled Lord Chaitanya and Five Features. There's actually a book about this. Anybody read that book? It's quite an old one. And it's text number 76, very famous verse. We used to sing this in Kirtan, maybe Shyamasundar and the talks, you remember? There's a devotee called Prajapati, and he would sing this in Kirtan. He was a very expert actor, very dramatic. One time we had Kirtan, actually it was more than one time, you may remember also, you two veteran devotees. And you just had Guru Puja there for Srila Prabhupada, and then after you do the Guru Puja, you do the English, the Lotus Feet of our spiritual master. So he started saying that, and then he stopped and says, okay, let's try that again more sincerely. So, and it was good because sometimes you do these things day by day and it just becomes automatic. You do it in your mind somewhere else, become so expert that we don't even listen to what we're saying. So this is Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada says means, first of all, we become conscious and then we become Krishna conscious. So just give me a second. I just want to read from this because I can make the print a bit bigger. So this particular verse and some verses before and after it are actually very important. And we will see the mission and the mood of Lord Caitanya here. Okay, we'll do this verse. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Namaiva, Kevalam, Kalo Nasti, Eva, Nastieva, Nastieva, Gatir, Anyata, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Namaiva Kevalam, Kalonascheva Nascheva, Nascheva Gatiranyata, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Namaiva Kevalam, Kalonascheva Nascheva, Nascheva Gatiranyata, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Namaiva Kevalam, Kalonascheva Nascheva, Nascheva Gatiranyata. Someone like to chant the verse?
Hare Nama, Hare Nama,
Hare Nama, Hare Nama,
Hare Nameva Kevalam,
Hare Nameva Kevalam,
Lo Nastyeva Nastyeva,
Lo Nastyeva Nastyeva,
Nastyeva Gatiranyata,
Nastyeva Gatiranyata.
Hare Nama, Hare Nama,
Hare Nama, Hare Nama,
Hare Namaiva Kevalam,
Hare Nameva Kevalam,
Lo Nastyeva Nastyeva,
Lo Nastyeva Nastyeva,
Nastyeva Katir Anyata,
Nastyeva Gatiranyata.
Hare Nama, Hare Nama,
Hare Nama, Hare Nama,
Hare Namaiva Kevalam,
Hare Nameva Kevalam,
Lo Nastyeva Nastyeva,
Lo Nastyeva Nastyeva,
Nastyeva Katir Anyata,
Nastyeva Gatiranyata.
Ladies,
Hare Nama, Hare Nama,
Hare Nama, Hare Nama,
Hare Nama Eva Kevalam,
Hare Nameva Kevalam,
Lo Nasti Eva Nasti Eva,
Lo Nastyeva Nastyeva,
Nasti Eva Katir Anyatha,
Nastyeva Gatiranyata.
Hare Nama, Hare Nama,
Hare Nama, Hare Nama,
Hare Nama Eva Kevalam,
Hare Nameva Kevalam,
Lo Nasti Eva Nasti Eva,
Lo Nastyeva Nastyeva,
Nasti Eva Katir Anyatha,
Nastyeva Gatiranyata.
Hare Nama, the holy name of the Lord. Hare Nama, the holy name of the Lord. Hare Nama, the holy name of the Lord. Eva, certainly. Kevalam, only. Kalo, in the age of Kali. Na asti, there is none. Eva, certainly. Na asti, there is none. Eva, certainly. Na asti, there is none. Eva, certainly. Gati, progress. Anyata, otherwise. Translation. For spiritual progress in this age of Kali, there's no alternative, there's no alternative, there is no alternative to the holy name, the holy name, the holy name of the Lord. Please repeat. For spiritual progress in this age of Kali, there is no alternative, there's no alternative, there's no alternative to the holy name, the holy name, the holy name of the Lord. Anyone get any doubts about that? And this is Srila Prabhupada's purport, explaining the meaning of this verse. For progress in spiritual life, the Shastras recommend meditation in Satya Yuga, sacrifice for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu in Treta Yuga, and gorgeous worship of the Lord in the temple in Dwapar Yuga. But in the age of Kali, one can achieve spiritual progress only by chanting the holy name of the Lord. This is confirmed in various scriptures. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there are many references to this fact. In the 12th canto, 351, it is said, Kalir dosha nedi rajan, aitahi ko mahanguna, kirtanad eva Krishna sya mukta sangha param vrajet. In the age of Kali, there are many faults, for people are subjected to many miserable conditions, yet in this age there is one great benediction. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one can be freed from all material contamination and thus be elevated to the spiritual world. The Narada Pancharatra also phrases the Hare Krishna Mahamantra as follows: Tayo Veda Sadangani Kandamsi Vivida Sura Sarvam Ashtaksharantastam Yachchanyad Api Vanmayam Sarva Vedanta Sarartha Samsararnava Tarana. The essence of all Vedic knowledge, comprehending the three kinds of Vedic activity, Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda, the chandas or Vedic hymns, and the processes for satisfying the demigods is included in the 8 syllables of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. This is the reality of all Vedanta. The chanting of the holy name is the only means to cross the ocean of nescience. Similarly, the Kali Santarana Upanishad states, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. These 16 names, composed of 32 syllables, are the only means to counteract the evil effects of Kali Yuga. In all the Vedas, it is seen that to cross the ocean of nescience, there is no alternative to the chanting of the holy name. Similarly, Sri Madhvacharya, while commenting upon the Mundaka Upanishad, has quoted the following verse from Narayana Samhita. Tvapariyayar Janayar Vishnu Pancharatraj tu Kevalai Kalo tu Nama Matrena Pujyate Bhagavan Hari. In Dwapar Yuga, one could satisfy Krishna or Vishnu only by worshipping him gorgeously according to the Pancharatrika system. But in the age of Kali, one can satisfy and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, simply by chanting the holy name. In his Bhakti Sandarbha, text 284, Srila Jiva Goswami strongly emphasizes the chanting of the holy name of the Lord as follows. That's quite a lot of Sanskrit there, so I'm just going to go to the translation. Srila Jiva Goswami states that the substance of all the Vedic mantras is the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Every mantra begins with the prefix Nama Om and eventually addresses by name the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By the supreme will of the Lord, there is a specific potency in each and every mantra chanted by great sages like Narada Muni and other rishis. Chanting the holy name of the Lord immediately renovates the transcendental relationship of the living being with the Supreme Lord. To chant the holy name of the Lord, one need not depend upon other paraphernalia, for one can immediately get all the desired results of linking with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It may therefore be questioned why there is a necessity for initiation or further spiritual activities and devotional service for one who engages in the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. The answer is that although it is correct that one who fully engages in chanting the holy name need not depend upon the process of initiation, generally a devotee is addicted to many abominable material habits due to material contamination from his previous life. So this previous life may mean previous lives, previous bodies, or previous life to becoming a devotee. In order to get quick relief from all these contaminations, it is required that one engage in the worship of the Lord in the temple. The worship of the deity in the temple is essential to reduce one's restlessness due to contaminations of conditioned life. Thus, Narad in his Pancharatrika Vidi and other great sages have sometimes stressed that since every conditioned soul has a bodily concept of life aimed at sense enjoyment, to restrict this sense enjoyment, the rules and regulations for worshipping the deity in the temple I missed a bit. The worship of the deity in the temple is essential to reduce one's restlessness due to the contaminations of conditional life. Thus, Narad in his Pancharatrika Vidya and other great, okay, we've said that, are essential. Srila Rupa Goswami has described that the holy name of the Lord can be chanted by liberated souls, but almost all the souls we have to initiate are conditioned. It is advised that one chant the holy name of the Lord without offences and according to the regulative principles. Yet, due to their past bad habits, they violate these rules and regulations. Thus, regulative principles for the worship of the deity are also simultaneously essential. Om Gyanatamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasman Shri Gurave Namaha Dukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lagate Grim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shigrim Dinataranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Nama Hare Nama Eva Kevalam Kalonisjeva Nasjeva Caitanya. So has anybody heard Prabhupada say that this Hare Krishna movement is non-sectarian? Prabhupada says that, right? But here he's saying, how does that fit with this verse? Anybody? If you take the whole picture, and then Prabhupada also said that one can chant any name of God, just like in the Shikshastakam we're hearing there are hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. So if Prabhupada encouraged that if somebody knows God by another name, then chant that name. And then he says the best names of God are Krishna, Hare Krishna and Rama. Now this is given in the Atharva Veda. Lord Brahma had a son called Pipalayana, and his son was collecting some firewood. Is it Arani wood they call it for fire yagya? He was collecting the firewood, and he noticed that his son was quite disturbed. And he says, "What's your trouble?" And he says, "I'm just feeling very compassionate for the fallen souls in Kali Yuga when things are very inauspicious. How will they be liberated? How will they attain salvation?" And Lord Brahma said that the Supreme Lord, the cause of all causes, Sri Krishna, will appear in the guise of a devotee, Chana avatar, covered incarnation, and he'll chant his own names, Hare, Krishna and Rama. And he will descend to teach the Yuga Dharma, which is simply the chanting of these three names, 16 syllables. So this was foretold a long time ago. And also we're seeing that this in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's also mentioned Kali Dosha, that the ocean of Kali, the age of Kali is an ocean of faults, but simply by kirtan and Krishna kirtan, kirtanad eva Krishnasya. So we can have so many different kirtans, just like you couldn't call it kirtan, but you could go to a football match. One person asked me and says, "Well, what's the difference? I go to a football match and I chant the name of my team and we're all jumping up and down. There's 40,000 of us and it feels great. What's the difference between that and kirtan?" Anybody? What would you say to that?
One's material, one's spiritual.
Yeah, but your team doesn't always win, does it? Krishna always wins. Krishna never loses. He's Ajit. He's unconquerable. But sometimes your team is conquered and you're not jumping up and down next to. Sometimes you're miserable, isn't it? It's really, one week you might be okay, and then you might even get relegated to another league. Or there's some trouble afterwards and you end up in hospital or something like that. But there's never trouble in kirtan. You never see a fight breaking out in kirtan, do you? You don't see the police coming to contain the kirtan. In fact, it used to be that when the devotees did kirtan, they used to get arrested for doing it. But now things have changed so much that if anyone tries to disturb us, the police come and defend us. Because obviously in the beginning, people didn't understand what this Krishna consciousness movement is about. And this is Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. In his pastimes also, they were being harassed by authorities until they understood. And then they gave all protection, like Chant Kazi, because he was Muslim. He was thinking that these Hindus are going to create a revolution with this congregational chanting on the streets. So we have to quell this. People shouldn't become too enthusiastic about this. Maybe they'll have some movement against us. He was worried about his political status. So he ordered that the mridungas be broken. And there was a warning, anyone doing this will be severely punished. And of course, the Supreme Lord, his desires never frustrated. So he created a big civil disobedience march towards the Chand Kazi's house. And it was so powerful, there was tens of thousands of devotees with torches and kartals and mridungas. It was tumultuous. Kirtan was resounding, it was deafening. And the power of the Lord's holy name was such that no one could stand in the way. And even the guards, they were sometimes running away or they were joining in the kirtan. And finally, they got to the Chand Kazi's house and he submitted and he made an order that nobody should interfere with the kirtan. He was so afraid, but then when Lord Caitanya went to him, he spoke to him from the Quran, and he said to him, this is in your book. Why are you stopping this? This is also the same thing in your book. So it's and the same thing in the Bible, that the Lord should be praised with timbrel and drum. Hallowed be thy name. This is one of the most favoured prayers of the Christian community. Hallowed be thy name. And it's a fact, the Lord's name is holy. So this is, it's not sectarian. Prabhupada said even Aboriginal persons living in jungles, they still have a conception of God. And the Lord in Bhagavad Gita says, according to their faith, I become manifest to them. But at the same time, Krishna's name is the original name of the all-attractive personality of Godhead. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarna Karnam. So Lord Brahma states this in the beginning of Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter. He doesn't say Ishvara Parama Madhusudan. Of course, that's still Krishna. But he particularly uses that name, Ishvara Parama Krishna. Krishna is the supreme controller. He is an eternal form full of bliss and knowledge. Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarnakaram. He is the origin of all. There's no other origin. And he's the cause of all causes. So there's nothing beyond Krishna. It's not that by chanting Hare Krishna, worshipping Krishna, that we'll come to something else. If we want something else, then we can go to that, but we won't get the full benefit of being Krishna conscious. So in the previous ages, there were different types of self-realization which were given to the people in general to practice. So in the Satya Yuga, there was mystic meditation. People had long lifespan there. The atmosphere was much more conducive. But nowadays you can't do that. One time I remember I was in Nepal in the Himalayas. I was in a place called Pokhara, and we went further up the mountains to a place called Muktinath, which is one of the very northern or most elevated in terms of above sea level, also above spiritual terms. So we went there and it was very quiet, and also because it was winter time, normally people go trekking there or pilgrims go there, but they go once the winter has finished. But we went up in February and it was freezing cold and there was nobody there almost. There was a lodge, we stayed in a lodge, but the water had frozen up in the lodge as well. And it was empty apart from the person who owned it. But it was interesting. We went there simply for the purpose of collecting Shalagram Shilas, which is the form of the Lord, manifestation of Vishnu, which you'll find in the Gandaki River there. And by the Lord's mercy, then we were able to find some shalagrams. But although it was so remote, I was thinking this is such a remote part of the world. But then, and we were in the valley of Kentucky Valley, and we were at the riverbed, and it was very dry because winter, all the ice was still on top of the mountains. It hadn't thawed and run down the river. So we were on the dry riverbed, mainly dry, and we're thinking it was such a peaceful place. We were given quite a big tall order to get like 1 lakh of shaligrams, and I was thinking this is taking some time. This is going to be a lifetime's job. So I was just figuring that, okay, we're going to have to figure a way to just stay here all the time and just go back and forward to Scotland for the rest of this lifetime. But it turned out it didn't happen like that, obviously, because we're here. It turned out not to be so practical. So while we were searching for shaligrams peacefully, and ecstatic service it was, then there was a military helicopter comes flying down low right through the valley, because we were on the border of China there. There's Nepal, Tibet, China. And we realized that even some of the most remote places where people would go to the Himalayas, they would give up family life previously, and they'd go to the Himalayas. And you can see in some of the cliff faces, there's all these little caves. People would lower themselves into these caves and become hermits. But we realised that is not possible now. Even some of the most remote part of the planet is not actually suitable to retire to. And I had this very clear realisation that, this is why Harinam Eva Kevalam. Wherever you go, people, it's like sometimes we do these programs and festivals with New Age people, and they're quite keen on finding their sacred space. And typically people would try to find a sacred space in the forest or in the mountains or in the some very remote place or in a holy place. But in Kali Yuga, nowhere is sacred. Nothing is sacred. But and we would actually tell them that by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra, you can find that sacred space within yourself, anywhere, anytime. So there's nowhere to run to in Kali Yuga. So we run run to Krishna within, and Krishna is within our heart. So when we start chanting Hare Krishna, then immediately we make a connection with Krishna, who's within our heart. So this verse which we were just chanting there, the verse before it, which is 773, is Krishna mantra haiti habi sampraya mochana, Krishna nama haiti pabi Krishna racharana. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna, one can obtain freedom from material existence. Indeed, simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one will be able to see the lotus feet of the Lord. Because there's no difference between the name of Krishna and Krishna himself. And Krishna is pure, so when we chant Krishna's name, then we also become pure. It's by this association, just like they say in Hindi, Jesi Sangha Vesi Ranga. If we put the nice clean dhoti in the washing and someone puts a red choli in with it, or a red top piece, and the dhoti's not white any longer, isn't it? It's finished. You have to find some other use for it. So by association, or if we associate with certain types of people, unless we're very, very strong, then we start to take on their qualities. So therefore, when we become interested in devotional service, then we want the association of like-minded people. We want the association of devotees because we want to become immunized against the association of others who will keep us connected to the material world. So just like was being said there, that there's so many faults in this Kali Yuga, we have so many bad habits. And if we keep association with people who are doing these all the time, then how's it going to be possible for us to stop these bad habits? But when we associate with those who are giving up, or who have given up, then we also get that strength. Prabhupada said it's just like you take one twig, you can easily break it. If you take many of them, then you can't even bend it. So together we're stronger, and therefore we come together to today and this weekend for the purpose of getting some spiritual strength. And it's wonderful that in this digital age, that even though we may be far away from the temple, then we can still get association of devotees online. We can do that. So when we begin chanting, first of all, there's three stages of chanting. There's the offensive stage, and then there's the clearing stage, and then there's the pure stage. So by this continual chanting, Prabhupada says that those who want to be initiated, they should chant 16 rounds minimum. That's the deal. Prabhupada is the Krishna's broker. He's come to broker a deal between the living entities and the Supreme Lord. When Prabhupada first had disciples, he wanted them to chant 64 rounds a day. That's quite standard in India. When people take disciples, then they chant 64 rounds a day. And we know some friends in Vrindavan who have been from their guru who have taken that vow. And they still do. They still have a family to look after. Somehow or another, they get 64 rounds done a day. But when Prabhupada's disciples said, "Oh, it's not possible, we can't do all this preaching and all the rest of it, and it's too difficult," he said, "Okay, 32 then." And he said, even that, and he said, "Okay, minimum 16. So when the spiritual master, who is the Lord's representative, Shakshad Tuenasa Master Shastraya, he's directly the Lord's representative, says that, then, okay, this is our deal. And Prabhupada says 16 rounds for regulative principles to go back to Godhead. We were hearing that. Mahatma Prabhu was saying that, was it yesterday? So the association of devotees helps it possible for us to follow these rounds, these rules. Sometimes when we hear about these rules, we think, "Oh, that's impossible. How can we follow these things? How can anyone be expected to follow that?" Did anyone feel like that when they first heard what the rules were? Hands up. Just me. I thought it was impossible. But then by association of devotees, you see, well, they're doing it, and they also came from a background which was similar. So by chanting the holy name of the Lord and keeping good association, offering all the food to Krishna, then we immunize ourselves from the effects of Kali Yuga. And we're not just doing this for ourselves, because we're also, as we become more spiritually advanced and we get some taste for Krishna consciousness, we realize that when we look at those who are not taken to Krishna consciousness, we see there go I, but by the grace of God. We don't think, "Oh, I'm high and dry now, I'm good, I'm saved, and you guys are just all out of it." We don't look at people like that. We look with compassion. We think that could be me, that was me. And if I'm not careful, it could be me again. And then we think, well, how can I be benefited? How can they be benefited? And they can be benefited by us simply, in ISKCON, we have 3 weapons. Usually when the Lord appears in different yugas, he has different weapons for dealing with the demons, etc., and benedicting the devotees. Pratyanaya sadhanam vinashaya duskritam. He comes to liberate his devotees and deal with the demons. But in Kali Yuga, what are the weapons of Lord Chaitanya? Yeah, Kirtaus Madanga. And so we have three ways where we this mission of Lord Chaitanya, three fronts, but how it's enacted is prasadam. So take prasadam ourselves and then give it to others. Not that we just eat anything and we give out prasadam to everybody. Don't forget to look after yourself. Probably say the most important principle is save yourself first. So when there's a shipwreck, then first you got to save yourself, right? You don't, like, while you're drowning, try to save somebody else. First of all, stop yourself from drowning. Find something to grab onto, maybe a piece of wood or one of those life rings or whatever you call them. And then you try to help someone else. Just like I take it everyone here's been on an airplane. So when they're giving you the demonstration of what to do in the event of an accident, then they see the mask will drop down out of the top of the cabin, and fix your own mask first. Even if you get children, fix your own, because if you're trying to fix your children squirming and you're dying of, you being asphyxiated or whatever. So you fix your own first, and then you can operate normally. So it's important that we take prasadam, we chant Hare Krishna, and we read Prabhupada's books. And then it's important that we give out prasadam. We go on Harinam, we give the holy name to others on the street or in various programs which we organise. And we give out this transcendental literature. This transcendental literature is so important, so it convinces us of the importance of chanting Hare Krishna. And we must, even if we think, oh, that's really good, I really do appreciate the importance of chanting Hare Krishna, so I don't have to read anymore. We don't think like that, do we? We continue to read because Krishna's words are fathomless. So even personally speaking, I was reading Bhagavad Gita since, I think, 1982 was when I first came across it. And what little I understood then, it was mind-blowing. And even now, 30-odd years later, it's still mind-blowing. And it's always going to be like that because Krishna is ever-expanding. He's infinite. He's not limited. And so we're infinitesimal trying to understand the infinite. But Krishna, out of his mercy, reveals to us. So I had one friend who was reading Prabhupada's books, but whenever it came to the Hare Krishna mantra in the pages, he would just skip over that. Anything to do with the chanting, he would just skip over it. And therefore, once you chant Hare, okay, go to the next bit. And he never took to the chanting. He wasn't interested. He was thinking, I don't see the need for that. But he found the philosophy very interesting. It was because he was reading philosophical books, and he was that way inclined. So he came to one festival, and usually at the festival we begin by chanting the Maha Mantra. And as soon as he joined in the Kirtan, that all just came flooding to him that, this is what it's all about. This is why he keeps on emphasizing the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. He realized this, and then everything that he'd been reading, it just came to life. Vidya Vada Jivanam is a life of all transcendental knowledge. So these things together, we must immunize ourselves from the effect of Kali Yuga by taking sanctified foodstuffs offered to Krishna. We can offer it at home. Everything we eat must be offered to Krishna. Even if you're in some kind of situation where it's a bit difficult to, like maybe you have to go for lunch with a colleague and you can't just get an altar out in some cafe or something like that. You just, in your mind, you can do a manasa offering, but we always make sure that we get something which is offerable, of course. And as much as possible, we get the chance to share this Krishna consciousness by giving it to others. Just like the devotees were speaking yesterday about giving Krishna consciousness to others. So the more we give, then the more we end up with as well, the more realizations we have. So in the beginning, of course, we hear about the glories of chanting Hare Krishna. For example, Lord Chaitanya's glories of rolling on the floor in ecstasy, tears from the eyes like torrents of rain, hair standing on end. And one person used to joke that if we see one a word of what he's doing, that means he's probably got the flu. But so we don't imitate these things. Sometimes people, this is called sahaja. Sahaja means to take things cheaply. We want to be seen as something great, so what do? We start rolling about the floor and we're pretending that we've got some high ecstasies. So we're not interested in that. Krishna is not attracted by that. We're only fooling ourselves. We're not, and anybody who follows such a person is even greater fool. But these things will come automatically. In due course of time, they'll come automatically because this is the living entity's natural position. This is our eternal relationship. Just now we've got a relationship with material energy and we're transforming, coming back to Krishna again. So in the beginning, sometimes it doesn't taste as sweet. We think, oh, we're hearing about all these glories of the holy name, but I'm not experiencing that. And that's good that we recognize that, because then we're hankering to experience that. And we may have to be patient. This is what Rupa Goswami explains in the Nectar of Instruction, Upadeshamrita, that success in devotional service comes by being patient. Meanwhile, we continue with our devotional duties, and in due course of time it will all come. And Rupa Goswami says that the holy name, character, pastimes, and activities of Krishna are all transcendentally sweet like sugar candy, although the tongue of one afflicted by the jaundice of avidya, ignorance, cannot taste anything sweet. It is wonderful that simply by carefully chanting these sweet names every day, so carefully, that doesn't mean to say, oh, we just get the numbers down and then throw the bead bag in the corner. It's carefully chanting, which means being attentive, just like Mahatma Prabhu has given us some very good tips on being attentive, chanting with feeling, chanting with reverence and affection. If we become familiar, everyone should become familiar with the Shikshastakam and Srila Prabhupada's purport to the Mahamantra. This is Lord Chaitanya's mission, and this is Srila Prabhupada's telling us directly from his own mouth how to chant purely, how we can attain the highest stages. So it's wonderful that simply by chanting carefully that a natural relish awakens within his tongue and his disease is gradually destroyed at the root. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport to the Mahamantra that this chanting Hare Krishna is not an artificial imposition on the mind. It's actually the eternal original sound vibration which reawakens that eternal relationship with the living entity in the Supreme Lord. So, some of you may be familiar, especially from, if you have an Indian background, you may be familiar that, in fact, it's sometimes quite interesting to us Western-born devotees that we hear Indians referring to the Hare Krishna movement as Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. But there's a reason for that, is because in the Shastra, this Mahamantra was given as Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So that's why it's known as Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. But why we chant Hare Krishna, Hare Rama then? Anybody know?
Mahaprabhu changed it further because said that Hare Rama, this will be related to Brahma and other things. So Mahaprabhu said it should be given to everyone, and he said.
So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was being criticised by the Brahmins at that time. Some of them were a bit envious of him because he was actually he was such a learned Brahmin. And sometimes if people are proud of their learning and someone becomes better, then they get a bit envious and they want to try to bring them down, isn't it? Naturally, this is the thing of envy. That we don't try to elevate ourselves, we try to bring others down so that we are up. This is material advancement. So they were criticizing Lord Chaitanya, why are you doing this? You know, this is not what a Brahmin should be doing. This mantra is to be chanted privately in seclusion. So he said, okay, I won't chant that mantra. I'll chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So therefore he satisfied the Brahmins that he wasn't chanting. He wasn't making any transgression of scriptures. And at the same time, carry on with his mission. So this is the intelligence of the Lord, supremely intelligent, that his mission is never frustrated. Just like we look at Prahlad Maharaj, Lord Nrsimhadev and Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyakashipu had been given so many benedictions that you couldn't think, how is it possible that he could be killed? Lord Krishna is going to have to, in the form of Lord Nrsimhadev, is going to have to break some of Lord Brahma's promises, but he didn't break any of them. So this Hiranyakashipu, he wasn't some dumb person, he was very intelligent. So he'd scrutinizingly requested all these benedictions from Brahma and then thought, okay, I'm immortal now. Nobody can kill me in any circumstance. But he was killed because he was up against the Supreme Lord, Supreme Intelligence. So when we become devotees of the Lord, and Rupa Goswami says, anyone chants Hare Krishna as a devotee, then the Lord takes us under his protection. And this chanting, it's said that we should chant just as the child is crying for the mother, feels helpless, then we should be like that. Of course, we shouldn't be making a show of it, but we chant Hare Krishna, knowing that Krishna is our only shelter. So just a few little quotes I'd like to make here from C.C. Anja 2013. Sankirtana Haiti Papa Samsaranashana Chitta Shuddhi Sarva Bhakti Sudana Udgama. By performing congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, one can destroy the sinful condition of material existence, purify the unclean heart, and awaken all varieties of devotional service. So when one chants and chants and chants, then simply devotional service becomes attractive to us, and the things which we were previously interested in, then we lose the taste for those. They become uninteresting to us. We look back and sometimes we don't see how we're progressing because the progression is in very small increments. But other people can see that we've changed. And we look back and realize after some time, actually, I'm not doing those things that I thought I couldn't give up. And another one, Krishna Premodgama, Premamrita Aswadana, Krishna Prapti Sevamrita Samutri Majana. The result of chanting is that one awakens his love for Krishna and tastes transcendental bliss. Ultimately, one attains the association of Krishna and engages in his devotional service as if immersing himself in a great ocean of love. Now, who wouldn't want that? And then Nam Sankirtana Haitis Sarvanarta Nasha Sarva Shubhodaya Krishna Premara Ulasa. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna, one can be freed from all undesirable habits. This is the means of awakening all good fortune and initiating the flow of waves of love for Krishna. So the spiritual master, he's giving the holy name. He's Krishna's representative. And Prabhupada is making the point in the purport that although one could argue that what's the need for a spiritual master, etc., then the need is that one should take the holy name from the authorized source. He says, in the purport to the Mahamantra, Prabhupada says that milk touched by the lips of a serpent has poisonous effects. If you've got a pot of milk and a serpent just touches it, the serpents sometimes like to take milk because it increases the potency of their venom, but also it contaminates your milk then. And if you drink it, then you may get poisoned. So similarly, the holy name is like milk, it's like nectar. But if it's given by someone who's unauthorized, then it can have the poisonous effect. You won't have the ultimate goal of awakening pure love for Krishna. So therefore, we have to be careful to take instructions from and receive initiation from the bona fide spiritual master. And Krishna is recommending this. In Bhagavad Gita 4.34, Tadvadi pranipatena pariprishnena sevaya upadikshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshanaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching your spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So Krishna is saying, disciplic succession, he's seen the truth from his spiritual master, evam parampara praptam. So we're taking this, and this parampara is the transcendental via media coming all the way from Krishna. So Prabhupada, he told us that my only qualification is that I never changed anything. So this is the best qualification, don't change anything. We have a tendency to speculate, or we get tired of something, so we want to change it and put our own bit in. Don't do that. If we just stick with Krishna consciousness in due course of time, just like watering a plant, you get the seed and you water a little every day, it's going to grow healthy and strong. And the weeds come up, you pull them out, and you keep watering it, keep pulling at the weeds. And ultimately, the plant is so strong that even if any weeds come near it, it's not going to be affected. So this is the beauty of Krishna's transcendental holy name. And at the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna Varnam, Tvisha Krishnam, Sango Pangasha Parshadam, Yogyai Sankirtana, Sankirtana Prayar, Jantihi Sume Dasa. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. So this is very important to understand. So this holy name of the Lord is not a mundane sound vibration. It's coming from the spiritual world. Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtan. From Goloka, the gift of pure love of Godhead is coming in the form of the holy name. And simply all we have to do is just keep hold of that. Just like, say, you're in the ocean and you're struggling to, perhaps there's a shipwreck and there's many people around the ocean, and then as a boat comes along and throws out a lifeline, you hold on to it. And even if the sea's rough, you just hold on to it. And eventually you get pulled on board. And when you get on board, you stay on board. Don't jump off the ship. Even if you're feeling a bit seasick, you just stick with it. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says we've had so many lives. So generally devotees don't gamble, right? This is one of our principles, we don't gamble. But it says if this human form of life is a gamble, so at least just gamble one for Krishna and see the result. And then there'll be no more coming back. So just give one life to Krishna. Whatever our situation is, just take to this chanting of Hare Krishna as much as possible. The solution to the material world's problems is not a material solution. That's simply blowing on the boil. We have to get to the root of it. The solution is that we don't belong here. And this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra will take us back to where we belong. Anyone get any questions or comments? Sita and then Sham.
You were saying how before it used to be Hare Rama, and then so, and I get that sometimes, especially when you're keeping like Indian people. What would you say is the most simplest way of explaining or justifying that we say Hare Krishna twice?
Sorry, I could only hear part of what you're saying. Can you speak a bit louder?
Yes. So, did you hear the first part? About how it used to be Hare Rama, is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
So I get that a lot, especially when you're doing books and the Indian people know it's supposed to be Hare Rama first. So what's the most simplest way of explaining to them that it's Hare Krishna first?
Well, if you got the time to explain to them that reason why, and if not, just let them chant Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, because it's just like when McGrady the hunter, who was cruelly half killing the animals, and was so sinful that even when Narada showed him what direction was going to be, then he obviously was decided, I better stop this, because I'm going to suffer greatly for this. But he was so simple that he couldn't chant, so he just says chant Mara. Mara means death. So he's going Mara, 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 Rama, 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 Rama. So it became Rama. So if they chant Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, it becomes Hare Krishna, Hare Rama anyway. So as long as they chant, that's the main thing. If you just say, okay, well, if you think it's that, then just chant that then. But if they really want to know why they do it, then you can tell them why. Just say that actually this Hare Rama mantra is meant to be chanted personally, silently, but the Hare Krishna, Hare Rama one is actually chanted in public. Sham.
Couldn't help noticing your symbol, the altar there, and that was the Chankazi symbol that he gave to the Harinam party to say this has got my approval. I remember when I first joined, that used to be taken out on the Harinam party because I didn't know the context at that time. But it's a Muslim symbol because it's got two moons on it. Of course, we put a tilak on it. It's also interesting sometimes Lord Caitanya chose that time in history to spread Krishna consciousness. I mean, Chankaji was an incredible Muslim, you could say, because you could say he risked his life doing that. Because in that background, people were being butchered by not being Muslims. We forget this sometimes. Yeah. We don't read all the details of this in the Charitamrta. That was the background. You could be killed. In fact, there was some of the devotees warned over that way because that's not a good place to go. You could be getting in trouble. And just remind that's maybe it's not relevant today because we're not under kind of threat from the rival Muslim. I mean, they probably would recognize the symbol anyway nowadays.
Yeah, it's very good point. You know, sometimes we think, well, Lord Chaitanya had it easy. He just came and chanted Hare Krishna and went back to God again. And we hear in Kali doing that. Actually, Lord Chaitanya came at a very difficult time as well. And his devotees were also in difficult situations. And sometimes it's in difficult situations when we actually take shelter in the Lord. If everything's easy going for us, sometimes we think, oh, I'm doing okay, I can just give it, as Mama Prabhupada said, but apathetic about our chanting. But sometimes difficulty, like we've seen in Bangladesh, many stories of that. And the teachings of Queen Kunti, she was praying like calamity happen again and again because that's how I remember it. When I put it in difficulty. Anything else?
Just a quick comment, Prabhu, like on the
Sorry, Katie's hand up and then yourself.
I just saw on that verse that you chose, someone was talking about it recently, and it kind of brought our attention to the fact that it's actually progress. Caitanya means to go, making some progress. So when we're chanting, we should be thinking about, well, how am I making progress in this? I mean, now's the kind of good time. You're thinking, well, now it's the new year. How are we going to progress this year?
It's a very good point because sometimes we think we have to be perfect. We can get a bit dismayed thinking, oh, I'm so far from the goal. So rather than just trying to be perfect, just try to make some progress, try to make some improvement, even if that improvement's a little bit. And a little bit a day, they say it, was it a 1,000-mile journey begins with one step. And Prabhupada was just mentioning about this actually, so you can find it takes a while to find it. Yeah, that's a good point. You just keep with it and make progress every day. Prabhu, you had a question?
I had a comment, Prabhu. So it was very interesting. I read one quote by Albert Einstein. He said, like, the consciousness which has created problem cannot solve it, so it needs to be changed. That consciousness itself has to be changed. And let me propose you to also ask that questions with all kind of sync. When we were thinking about the whole lecture explaining, that in this miserable world, how to bring that kind of container for everyone. So we as a conscious livings, we have created all these problems, so we have to change the consciousness, and the way forward is.
Yeah, because we're conditioned from many births, even when we try to solve a problem, we generally create another problem. And we see people are trying to do things and they're trying to solve one thing, but they don't think ahead that maybe they're creating another problem. They're just robbing Peter to pay Paul, and then they have to pay Paul instead of Peter. Or pay Peter instead of Paul. But the answers are given in the Shastra. So, for example, Bhagavad Gita 2.7, and Arjuna surrenders to Krishna. Now I'm confused about my duty and I've lost all composure due to my utterly weakness. And in this condition, I'm asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I'm your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So the answers are all there. This material world has come with a handbook, and that handbook is Bhagavad Gita. How to understand what is this world, how to live in it, how to live in it peacefully and sustainably. But if we think, well, I'm not going to listen to that handbook, I'm going to write my own handbook. This is what we're doing in the material world. Everyone's coming up with their own ideas. And they might get a little bit right, but they'll be frustrated somewhere down the line because they don't have perfect knowledge. They're using imperfect senses. And the conditioned soul has 4 defects, isn't it? Tendency to cheat, imperfect senses.
Committing mistakes.
Illusion.
Illusion and committing mistakes.
Commit mistakes and illusion. Yeah, so this is this is the kind of samsara, this is the cycle which we're in. But when we take knowledge from a higher platform, that knowledge which is descending, and then we can get somewhere, then we can get out of this material existence. Okay, I think we can stop here for breakfast. Shri Caritamrta ki, Congregational ki, Prabhupada ki, Krishna Maharaj ki, Hare Sankirtan ki, Hare So I'd just like to make an announcement. If everyone can continue to test and send the results on to the government, this one can hopefully everyone stays safe, just in case anybody turns out not to be. So we need everybody to hear this. Sorry, we need everyone to hear this. If everyone can continue to test while we're here every day, I think we probably got that message, but just to make sure, just in case anybody tends to show positive. Thank you. So every day we can do one test for that. Send the results to everyone.
We're meeting at 10 o'clock again here with a very special, exciting drama that you don't want to miss a moment of it. Please come back. So, 10 o'clock. The kids? Kids, please.